Live from London, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Lizzie Burden with your top stories. Oil prices tumble as President Trump says new talks with Iran will begin later today, with the planned attack called off. Meanwhile, the yen extends gains for a fourth day as the US and Japan both say they won't hesitate to intervene again in the currency market. And Bloomberg learns that AstraZeneca has explored a takeover of Bristol Myers Squibb in what would be the pharma sector's biggest ever deal. Well, happy Monday. Welcome to a new week and to August trading, but it is by no means quiet out there. Here is the picture in markets. A very different mood in Korea compared to the optimism that we're seeing on both sides of the Atlantic. The Kospi now down exactly 5%. The benchmark South Korean index down after that record rise on Friday. We've had the Japanese memory chip maker Kioxia posting disappointing results. That's reviving concerns about whether forward earnings have been priced too hopefully. You've also had DeepSeek releasing the official version of its V4 Flash model, so that also adding to worries about how rapidly Chinese competitive risks are closing in. Now, if we take a look at the cross-asset picture, factoring in the geopolitics here, Brent down 5.3%, $83 a barrel is where we trade right now. This is after President Trump said that US-Iran talks would restart. Therefore, you have Treasury yields brought down across the curve, the 10-year down 4 basis points at 468. And meanwhile, you've got the president saying that a coordinated US-Japanese yen buying operation was a signal of friendship. That first joint intervention in 15 years now confirmed by both sides, and the yen trading at 156.41 per dollar, up 0.6%. Now, let's take a look at the risk events for the week. Tomorrow we have SpaceX earnings. On Wednesday we have Novo Nordisk earnings. And on Friday, of course, it is the big US jobs report. A few other jobs numbers coming out in the run-up to that. But it's a busy week ahead. Let's get you started. We begin with a weak performance by chip makers in South Korea, dragging Asian stocks lower. And we could go straight to Winnie Su in Hong Kong for an update. Winnie, what's happening on the Kospi?
Yeah, good morning, Lizzie. Well, we do see that here, Asian stocks under a bit of pressure, despite the lower oil prices supposedly be able to support market sentiment. But we really see that markets in our region moving on these idiosyncratic themes with, as you mentioned, the Kospi index here leading declines down more than 5% now after having jumped 18% on Friday. It's a bit of a reversal there as foreign investors who were buyers on Friday turned into sellers today. Still lots of volatility in this market in terms of the uncertainty around the AI trade. But the bright spot today in Asia, though, is in the tech stocks in Hong Kong. We see HS Tech here up more than 1%. As we flip where we take a closer look at what's going on there, because lots of developments when it comes to the AI space in China. First off, we have Alibaba here leading gains among the Hong Kong internet names after the company launched the new flagship model, Quan 3.8 Max, with performances being able to rival that of the likes of Anthropic's Fable, for example. And we also have DeepSeek coming up with their new version of the V4 Flash, which it also says just ranked right after Kimi K3. So that is also pressuring its competitor here, Zhipu, down about 7%. Given that the capabilities in these names are really improving very fast. Now, when it comes to Minimax, interestingly, the company did come up with another new model when it comes to the AI video model, and the cost of it is just half of its peers. That's why we are seeing shares here gaining 8.9%. Now, flip the board, we take a look at Japan cross asset because, as you mentioned, yen is really front and center. We have the Japanese yen here strengthening as much as 1.4%. 1% earlier today. It did pair some of those gains, but still some of the speculation around whether there was another round of intervention or just investors being a bit jittery ahead of some potential further intervention to come. But overall, that strength in the currency pressuring the Japanese stocks, with the topics here down more than 1%, given the heavy weights of exporters that rely on the yen weakness. That's why we are seeing the automakers here leading the clients down more than 3%. Two-year yield also spiking at 5 basis points on the expectation that the Bank of Japan will have to raise rates earlier than expected. For now, we are pricing in a 90% chance of an October rate hike. Back to you, Lizzie.
OK, Winnie, thank you very much. That's Bloomberg's Winnie Xu. And we will come back to the yen. But just as we contrast that somewhat miserable start in Asia to the futures picture on both sides of the Atlantic, let's dive into one of the reasons for it. We have oil tumbling this morning after President Trump said that he'd called off a planned attack on Iran, saying that new talks are set to begin today. The US president also suggested that a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz is near.
What we're doing is we're talking to them in the form of a negotiation. It begins tomorrow afternoon, and we'll see if it's true. I'd love to do that, save a lot of lives, save a lot of unnecessary power, to be honest with you. It would take many, many years to ever build it back. If it could, I don't think it would be even buildable back. So we had an attack that would be the biggest attack since World War II.
Let's get more now with Bloomberg's Abir Abu Omar, our Horizons Middle East and Africa anchor, of course. Abir, good morning. We've been here before. What do we know about this new round of talks?
Good morning, Lizzie. Precisely. We've been here before multiple times over the past few months. This time around, President Trump went from threatening the biggest attack since World War II, as you were just hearing, to now saying that talks with Iran are set to recommence. Now, we don't have a lot of clarity, Lizzie. I know we say this a lot when it comes to this conflict, but we don't have a lot of clarity on when exactly those talks are set to begin, where they're set to take place, and we also don't have a tangible Iranian response on whether they're actually going to take place in all of this. We also don't know much from the mediators. But I guess what's different this time around is that Iran is in conversation with Oman about possibly opening up a new middle pathway through the Strait of Hormuz to help ships pass through the waterway, essentially. We know from the Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, who said on Telegraph earlier that the talks with Oman are in near final stages. And so we don't exactly know what they mean for the Strait of Hormuz, if that means demining it or allowing new pathways for ships to cross through or tolling it, for example. So a lot of caveats around what exactly is known. But for the time being, what we know from President Trump is that those talks with Iran are set to recommence. And Lizzie, I mentioned the Strait of Hormuz, and it really is expected to be front and center in those negotiations. The other concessions that we've spoken about multiple times, and actually the main reason that the United States had gone into this war with Iran, the nuclear component, has really taken a backseat to the Strait of Hormuz, which arguably people would say was open prior to all of this. But now, with the closures that we're seeing there, with the attacks, the latest actually from this morning that we're seeing in the Strait of Hormuz, with other waterways in the region also at risk of being hit by either Iran, the United States, or proxies of Iran in the region, those energy flows are expected to be what is on everyone's mind on those negotiation tables. And so that is what we're expecting to hear: further talks on energy flows, tankers being able to make their way through the Strait of Hormuz, and what exactly that means for the price of energy, which, according to markets, they're seeing President Trump's remarks as positive. You're seeing Brent crude at around $83 on the barrel. So oil still very much moving with those geopolitical headlines, Lizzie.
OK, Abir, thank you. That's Bloomberg's Abir Abu Omar. We will keep a close eye on those Iran-Oman talks, as well as between Washington and Tehran. But now, turning back to the yen, Japan and the US have warned of further coordinated action in FX markets. This is after confirming their first joint intervention in 15 years to lift the Japanese currency from a near 4-decade low.
We will not hesitate to conduct further joint intervention. the Japanese Ministry of Finance and the US Treasury will take decisive actions if any disorderly movements are detected, and those actions will be implemented. I am telling you that we are prepared to take actions at all times.
Let's bring in Bloomberg's Ven Ram, cross-asset strategist on our MLive team. Ven, there have been loads of questions about the effectiveness of this sort of intervention. Is it enough to shore up the yen longer term? Are we seeing the end of the carry trade, maybe?
Well, definitely there are questions about the longer-term implications of this, Lizzie. But the short-term, I think, punters are going to be deterred from bidding against the yen because they've clearly shown their hand and they can do more. But I think the fact that the US Treasury has come out and said that, look, we had this joint intervention. They had bouts of intervention earlier last week as well. They were silent, and the fact that they've come out now and saying that means that, to me, kind of suggests that this is the line in the sand for now, meaning there's going to be no further intervention unless the markets are emboldened again to push the yen lower. But you're absolutely right about the longer term implications. I think it would be far easier for the BOJ to fix itself. What they need to do is to be raising rates, and they seem to be running scared of the idea. There's nothing to be scared of when you raise rates. You just put up rates as much as you need to because your inflation is going higher, and if you restrict that how far the Bank of Japan is going to go, something will have to give, and what has been giving is the yen. So all this is symptomatic of what is happening in Japan. You can give a Panadol to a patient, the patient will be quiet for some time and will feel the alleviation of pain, but it's not going to cure the underlying malady, which is what they need to be doing here.
What a picture, Ven. Thank you for the analogy. That's Bloomberg MLive strategist Ven Ram. We're still ahead on Daybreak Europe. Novo Nordisk set to headline another busy earnings week across Europe. We'll look at what to watch. But first, AstraZeneca and Bristol Myers are said to explore what would be the biggest pharma deal of all time. We'll bring you the details next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. Now, Bloomberg understands that AstraZeneca has looked into an acquisition of Bristol Myers Squibb in a mega deal that would create one of the world's largest drug makers. Sources say the companies have held early-stage discussions about combining, and we can get more detail now with Bloomberg Deals reporter Manuel Baigori. Manuel, great to see you this morning. Just talk to us about whether this is actually likely, because I seem to recall the Astra CEO saying that he always rejects pitches on diseases outside Astra's core areas. And then reading analysts' concerns about the impact on earnings per share, I wonder if this is actually going to go ahead.
Yes, definitely, Lizzie. What a gigantic deal if it were to happen, right? This is one of those mega deal, blockbuster, transformative deals in the industry. We are talking to companies will, combine and create this massive biotech company. I mean, definitely could make sense. As you said, I mean, Pascal Soriot has been quite vocal in rejecting some of those pitches that go outside their core areas. But Bristol Myers offers some interesting products in blood thinners and cancer, particularly this one, which is a core area for AstraZeneca. Definitely there are some concerns whenever we face the possibility of a mega deal of this caliber. There are always going to be questions being raised also regarding antitrust and synergies and the feasibility of striking the right combination and the right valuation for both companies to agree to a transaction. Sounds from our reporting that talks have been on and off for a little bit of time, still preliminary, and remains to be seen. AstraZeneca will likely have to say something later this morning regarding may respond to this transaction. We'll see whether or not they're forced to put out a statement. But definitely a super interesting deal if it were to happen. And some analysts, as you rightly said, are are skeptical, but at the same time, perhaps now is the time to try strike a deal of this magnitude. Perhaps given the Trump administration has been quite receptive to some of the mega deals across the board. So remains to be seen the next steps, but definitely one to watch closely. Will be very, very transformative, the biggest deal that we've seen this year, definitely in the healthcare industry, and one of the biggest ever deals in the sector.
Well, yeah, talk to us about what those potential antitrust concerns would look like, even if the deal were to go ahead.
Well, definitely when you are combining, Lizzie, companies of this scale, right? We're talking Bristol Myers with around roughly 130 plus billion market cap, AstraZeneca being one of the very top companies in the UK, roughly 300 billion. I mean, it's going to be some overlaps. There is going to be products that overlap potentially in areas of cancer. Definitely for a lot of the early stage development treatments, the likelihood of those being successful obviously is far ahead, and perhaps the thresholds for antitrust remain to be seen. But definitely antitrust will be of some concern. But even beyond that, I think what investors may wonder is whether AstraZeneca, which has been consistently growing at a very rapid pace, may want to take on the risk of digesting such a large company, especially at a time when Bristol Myers growth is not that clear. We need to bear in mind that some patents are coming, off cliff very soon as well. So that may also weigh on valuation, perhaps. And usually these transformative deals also carry a very, very significant premium, which also needs to make sense for AstraZeneca and for the financial strength of the company. So antitrust definitely one, but there will be other hurdles, and investors will be raising questions, also potentially making transformative deals of this caliber a little bit challenging.
OK, Manuel, thank you for the detail there. That's Bloomberg's Manuel Baigorri on that potential deal. Well, coming up, the consequences of record temperatures across Europe widen as major rivers run dry. We'll bring you the latest next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. Now to some other top stories we're following for you this morning. Bloomberg understands that Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warsh has raised the possibility of changing the frequency of the central bank's policy meetings. Warsh is said to have floated a schedule which would see the Fed decide on rates 6 times a year instead of the 8 it currently holds. The Fed chair also discussed changes to the meeting schedule which would better align policy decisions with economic data releases. Elsewhere, Bloomberg understands that the Jefferies fund Point Bonita Capital is reviewing its exposure to the commodities trader Radiant World. It comes amid concerns about invalid invoices and other documents Radiant World allegedly provided to the banks. Radiant World denies the allegations, but sources say that the fund's exposure is now worth less than $300 million. And Monte dei Paschi is reportedly exploring a takeover of Banco BPM after talks over a merger of the two banks collapsed on Friday. This is according to the Financial Times, which says Paschi's CEO has considered approaching BPM's largest shareholder, Crédit Agricole, to discuss a move, and that no takeover would proceed if the French bank isn't willing to engage. And Spain's Prime Minister has criticised some European Union governments over their response to this week's mass influx of migrants into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta. Pedro Sanchez says some reactions were selfish, divisive and against European law, warning they could also run counter to Europe's long-term interests. Well, turning now to the heat, and we've had 2 helicopters colliding in Greece's Attica region while fighting a wildfire as emergency services face challenges to contain blazes across Europe. 4 consecutive heat waves and worsening drought have gripped the continent, with consequences rippling beyond record temperatures. Now, the continent's biggest rivers, the Rhine and the Danube, are drying up. And we can get more with Eva Brendel, Bloomberg's energy reporter. Great to have you with us, Eva. Just talk us through how the heat's impacting Europe's rivers, because this has got knock-on consequences, hasn't it, for freight, for example?
Yeah. Good morning. So we saw many weeks of above average temperatures. We had almost no rain across the region, and what we are seeing now is water levels dropping to record lows or near record lows. And as an example, one of the biggest rivers across Europe, the Rhine, is kind of a lifeline for the whole region, and many plants that are located along this river have to get their goods through vessels that ship for example, chemicals or fuel there, and while the vessels can still sail on the river, they cannot take as much cargo with them, meaning that freight rates have gone up.
Yeah, and what about the impact on power generation as well?
So what we just saw this weekend is that Hungary had to shut its only nuclear plant. The reason for that is that nuclear plants need water for cooling, and the Danube River just had not enough water to get the cooling water. And this is actually a first in 44 years of the plant operating. We also saw some reductions in nuclear plants in Romania. And in France, during previous heat waves, we could also see that some nuclear plants had to shut down or reduce output due to rivers that were just too warm to get any cooling water from them.
OK, well, clearly that will be a huge test for the new Prime Minister, Peter Magyar, given that, yes, of course, he inherited this system and its vulnerabilities, but, you know, he could be blamed for the handling of the situation. Eva, really great to get your insights. I'm sure it is another question of how it all threatens Europe's competitiveness with the US and Asia, but really interesting to see the economic impact of this latest climate development. Bloomberg's Eva Brendel there. Well, let's check in on these markets this Monday morning as we start the trading month of August, looking at the equities picture first of all, and futures pointing higher on both sides of the Atlantic this morning. But we have got stocks in Asia lower, particularly the Kospi down more than 5% at this moment. That's dragging down the broader MSCI Asia-Pacific Index 0.6%. We've got a couple of factors here, the focus really on tech. But first of all, more concerns about Chinese competition. Also disappointing results from a Japanese memory chip maker. And so for the Kospi, you've got renewed concerns about whether forward earnings have been priced too hopefully. Then if we turn over to the cross-asset picture, the part of the reason for the rosiness in the transatlantic futures picture is that, as you can see on the left side of the screen, Brent is lower by 5.4% at $83 a barrel. This on the geopolitics. President Trump saying that US-Iran talks will be restarting, that bringing down Treasury yields across the curve. But we also have a keen eye, of course, on the yen. 156 per dollar is where we trade. We are on the lookout for more yen intervention off the back of both sides confirming that there's already been intervention for the first time in 15 years. Well, coming up, oil falling and bonds gaining on renewed hopes of a deal between the US and Iran. We'll discuss the market outlook with Ludovic Subran from Allianz next. This is Bloomberg. Live from London, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Lizzie Burden with your top stories. Oil prices tumble as President Trump says new talks with Iran will begin later today, with a planned attack called off. Meanwhile, the yen extends gains for a fourth day as the US and Japan both say that they won't hesitate to intervene again in the currency market. And Bloomberg learns that AstraZeneca has explored a takeover of Bristol Myers Squibb in what would be the pharma sector's biggest ever deal. Well, a very good morning. If you are just joining us, 6:30 a.m. here in London. This is the picture in markets. The Kospi paring some of its earlier losses, but still down 4.8%. This, as we've had disappointing results from a Japanese memory chip maker, adding to concerns about whether forward earnings have been priced too optimistically, and then also concerns about Chinese competition, given that DeepSeek has released a new model. So that weighing on the Kospi and the broader MSCI Asia Pacific Index, but it's a different picture in Europe and the US, boosted, if we flip cross-asset, by lower oil prices. President Trump saying that US-Iran talks will be restarting, so Brent now at $83 a barrel. That bringing down Treasury yields across the curve. The 10-year now there at 4.68, down 4 basis points. And as I say, we've got a close eye on the yen this morning. 156 per dollar is where we trade right now, up 0.6% nearly. This after confirmation that there was already yen intervention, the first time in 15 years, a joint operation between the US and Japan, and President Trump saying that it was a signal of friendship. So we are on the lookout for even more intervention here. Now, let's take a look at the front pages this morning. Spain's El País is where we begin this Monday, and that is on the latest from Ceuta, Morocco, describing itself as a reliable and responsible partner as the country faces criticism for the handling of the border incident. 11 confirmed to have died in its territorial waters. Meanwhile, if we stay in Europe and turn to France's Le Monde, it focuses on the fallout from a wildfire which ravaged 42,000 hectares in Gironde, saying that while the blaze has been officially contained, residents in the most affected areas are expressing their anger over how the first hours of the fire were managed by the authorities. And let's come to the UK now. The Guardian leading with a warning from the National Farmers Union that the country could face shortages of certain foods as drought continues to hit parts of England. Well, you can get a roundup of all the stories you need to know to get your day going in today's edition of Daybreak, which, as ever, terminal subscribers can find by going to DAYB Go. Now, let's turn back to the markets. We've got oil falling this morning, bonds gaining on hopes of a deal between Iran and the United States to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Joining us now is Ludovic Subran, CIO and Chief Economist at Allianz. Really great to have you back. Ludovic, do you think the markets are too optimistic about diplomacy between the US and Iran? We've been here before, we've had talks before, and we've seen re-escalation before. Are markets pricing things well this morning?
Well, clearly the markets want to have a form of ceasefire, a form of détente, right? And this is a little bit what all the actions over the past few days have been about, including the Japanese yen intervention. It's about preventing the 10-year US to go above 4.7%. So I think the Brent is going in the right direction because of yet another ceasefire talk. I think it's the 10th or 11th. I counted this morning. Let's hope this one is the good one.
And let's talk about the Fed, because I wonder how much of a credibility problem you think that Kevin Warsh is responsible for personally, given all that he's said and not said when it comes to the rate path and communications, now openly debating whether there should be only 6 Fed meetings, not 8 per year.
Well, look, we're faced with quite a big issue here, which is the Fed completely abandoned forward guidance. We saw that last week during the Q&A. And now we have indeed the very problem that the number of Fed meetings is going to be reduced. I think that's going to give even more bond market volatility, even more room for, the type of turbulence we've seen on the bond market because of the lack of anchoring, right? And that's a little bit what people are concerned about in an era where inflation is a bit on the rise. So that's not good news, I would say, for most bond traders.
Yeah, I mean, what happens more for the dollar from here? Is it Warsh's communication or the data itself?
Well, this is this is a good question. I think it's not really about the president of the FOMC, but it is really about the macro environment. We see not only the market, but also the GDP numbers, the growth numbers. We're going to have the employment numbers. I think the U.S. economy could benefit from a hike, a preventive one, which we've seen from another central bank, like the European one. And of course, the next few months are going to be extremely important to decide on the timing of this hike. Right now, there is this idea that there will be no hike, and I think that's a bit of a mistake when you look at the demand-driven inflation in the country.
OK. I just was reading your latest notes. You say that the 60-40 portfolio isn't providing enough diversification, given that you've got stocks and bonds moving together these days. Do you see that coming back? What would it take to revive it? And what's the best way to diversify in the meantime?
I guess the main message of this research would be don't bank on a rate cut to save your bond investment. Yeah, so don't bank on the central banks to synchronously lower interest rates for everything to get better on the equity bond correlation, but also on your bond portfolio. The idea here is to say that on top of the inflation surge we've seen over the past 4 years, there is a policy uncertainty block that creates a very different correlation between the equity and bond market, and they are not basically protecting each other. So we're saying there are other things that look like diversifier. So we name gold, infrastructure debt, credit in general. But of course, that's a very different portfolio than the one people have been used to, where you used to count your years and say how many percentage of bond you need to have in your portfolio for your retirement. Yeah.
OK, so gold perhaps a place to turn to. And just staying in the bond space, we know now that the UK budget is going to be coming on October the 28th. When you look at gilts, are you concerned that perhaps Chancellor Healey and Prime Minister Burnham are going to leave the same or lower margins than Rachel Reeves left before? Could it go back to being razor thin, and where would that leave gilts?
I think that's the main concern everybody has on the room to maneuver and the safety margins of the budget in the UK. I think it's very complicated for people to see how Prime Minister Burnham is going to have enough room to maneuver in an environment in which the people that decided on him were actually calling him to take more action. So I think there is a bit of a catch-22 here. I'm concerned about the volatility on the gilt, but all in all, I would say the environment, the macro environment, the UK looks slightly better. But we remember very well the 10 billion of room to maneuver that was very small. I think we're going back into that direction with maybe less than 20 billion of room to maneuver for the UK budget. So that would require certainly an adjustment maybe on the tax side, which is something that would be not very popular in the UK today.
OK, but perhaps that's looking inevitable at this stage. Ludovic, really great to get you back on Daybreak Europe. That's Ludovic Subran, CIO and Chief Economist over at Allianz. Well, coming up on the programme, European earnings season ramps up, and this week it's the banks, airlines and one closely watched Danish drug maker that will be setting the tone. Your preview's next. This is Bloomberg. .40 here in London. Welcome back to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. Turning now to European earnings, and they continue to roll in this week. Alongside results from banks and airlines, attention's going to turn to the Danish multinational pharmaceutical company Novo Nordisk, of course. Let's get more now. A preview with Bloomberg's Chloe Melle. Chloe, what are you watching out for this week? What are going to be the highlights, probably?
Yeah, it's going to be, good morning, Lizzie. It's going to be probably quite a busy week. We've had now a couple of weeks of the earnings season, so some of the themes that have already come up are going to really come back in focus this week. We've got, of course, the AI trade. We're waiting for results from Siemens Energy, which makes the gas turbines for data centers, as well as Infineon, which is a chip maker. So we're going to be watching out for order momentum for both those companies. That's going to tell us a little bit about the sustainability of this AI demand going forward. Oil is still as well, very much in focus. We had those great results from Shell and Eni last week. This week, we're watching out for BP and Aramco. It's probably going to be the same kind of theme of benefiting from that disruption to oil flows. And then we also have a few consumer names. So far, we've had a bit of a mixed picture, some resilient, some a bit less so. And this week, we're watching out in particular for alcohol companies. We've got Heineken and we've got Diageo. They could have seen a bit of a World Cup boost, but at the same time, some weakness in the US market. So we'll see what happens in that consumer sector as well.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what BP has to say about putting its North Sea oil business up for sale as well, given the political ramifications. Just also give us a preview of Novo Nordisk, because that one a particular focus.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really the big one this week, and the main focus is going to be on the weight loss pill, the Wegovy pill, because the narrative at the start of the year had been that the success of Novo, the rebound of Novo Nordisk, was really dependent on the success of this weight loss pill, and it seems that it has been quite successful. There's been a bigger uptake than there has been for the rival weight loss drug, weight loss pill from Eli Lilly, and so we could see potentially some analysts are seeing a potential guidance raise coming from Novo Nordisk this quarter on the back of that. So we'll be watching out for that this week.
OK, Chloe, thank you very much. Well, that's the look ahead. Let's look back as well, mark our homework, because we have already had lots of European earnings shaping up so far this season. And we can talk to Tim Craighead, Global Chief Content Officer at Bloomberg Intelligence, for his analysis on what we've had so far. So we started, Tim, with an expectation of about 11% EPS growth for this earnings season. We're about 75% complete now. What's the scorecard looking like?
Yeah, you know, it's been a pretty solid earnings reporting period thus far. Overall, we've got over 200 companies that have reported. It's, as you said, the majority of the market cap that will report this quarter. 56% beat versus about 25% miss. Mm-hmm. So hands down favorable. And again, we've talked about this before. That doesn't seem nearly as high as the 70 or 80% beat that you see in the States. But Europe doesn't play the game the same way that the U.S. does. So this is a good reporting period. And all told, it takes us to about 14% earnings growth for the quarters, where we're tracking right now relative to that 11% initial expectation.
So if we look beyond the European level, who's the biggest contributors to these results? Who's kind of holding stuff back?
Yeah. As you all were talking previously, there's a host of companies that have come through, in particular on the positive. We've got banks that have had very good net interest income, given where interest rates are. We've had pharmaceuticals with some really good results coming through. It's quite good to see, and some positive revisions. The energy companies, clearly with higher oil prices. And the tech trade for Europe, largely beyond ASML, which was good, is also in that industrial space, which is playing into that data center build out, along with the whole electrification of the economy. So all of those tend to be strong points, and they're coming through this quarter. Consumer discretionary is where the misses, the notable misses have been. Think Mercedes-Benz, think Adidas, among others.
And a big China theme when it comes to luxury and the likes of Mercedes as well. Yeah. You just heard Chloe laying out the calendar for the week ahead. Anything that you'd flag that we should be watching out for?
I tell you, I have to agree with you all. Novo Nordisk with Wegovy is a big deal. We've got a positive focus idea on Novo Nordisk, where even a few months ago, the prescription trends that we get from our surveying doctors was quite a lot more positive than what consensus was expecting. So we do see the potential for upside surprise there. I think that's a big one. HSBC, speaking of China, in terms of how their wealth flows are coming through in the mainland, is a big deal. And Diageo was also mentioned, but their new CEO is in place, and how that execution of the story, with the U.S. being about 40% of their business, is also a good pulse check.
OK, really interesting. Tim, thank you so much. That's Tim Craighead from Bloomberg Intelligence. Now to some other top stories we're following for you this morning. Spider-Man, Brand New Day, has generated the largest opening weekend ticket sales of any film this year and the second highest in Hollywood history. The movie has brought in a global box office haul of $927 million. Sony saying that it's also set all-time opening records in markets including France, India and Brazil. And meanwhile, turning to sports, pressure mounting on FIFA President Gianni Infantino after plans to privatise the federation's commercial arm fell apart. UEFA, Europe's football governing body, says that it's lost confidence in FIFA's leadership. CONCACAF, which represents North and Central America as well as the Caribbean, is calling for accountability, saying that FIFA leadership, quote, stopped putting football first. Now to one of our top interviews. Financier Amanda Staveley is planning a return to football club ownership herself. In 2021, Staveley helped secure the Saudi investment fund's takeover of Premier League club Newcastle United. And in the latest episode of the podcast Leaders with Francine Lacroix, Staveley explains her decision to sell her 6% stake in Newcastle 2 years ago and talks about her desire to return to the sport. Now, this interview was recorded before Bloomberg and others reported that a consortium led by Staveley has agreed to buy a 25% share in English club West Ham United.
It was the toughest decision I've made. It was so hard. I rowed with my husband so much about it. Had such good memories, and it was really hard. But we felt very much that, we got a great offer for our shares. We also felt that we'd done an awful lot, and perhaps we were doing too much, and that the management team wanted the chance to be able to run the club the way they needed to, and they needed to be able to deliver. And it was a very hard decision. In fact, right up until the day we agreed it, I was still rowing. I was in tears for many days. Didn't want to do it.
Is that the hardest thing, to walk away from something?
Yes.
Is that a good leadership lesson?
Amazing. But that's leadership. You've got to make decisions. And also it's difficult because I was a stakeholder, an owner. And PIF were the majority owner, and I wasn't the owner. It's hard when they're saying to me, oh, Amanda, you haven't quite bought that brilliant player in at this price. We were delivering. But it was hard when the management team, if they can tell the management team off and say, why isn't this being done? Well, Amanda and Murdoch are there all the time. So we needed to give the management team a time to deliver. I think we've also been able to raise, a great deal of capital to invest in other businesses. So if we'd not had the success at Newcastle, maybe we would not have been able to do that so well.
What's next for Amanda Staveley? West Ham?
Oh, gosh. Another club. Another Premier League club. Or...
Which one?
I can't say. We're looking at a number. We've done a huge amount of work. Whatever club we take there'll be a big property play as well, because we won't just do a football led, or might be some other league. Might be, we like the US as well.
And lo and behold, it looks like it will be West Ham. And you can listen to that episode now wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch it on Bloomberg TV later today at 10 p.m. London time. Plenty more coming up. We'll bring you some terminal charts to frame your day ahead. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg.
The concern here is that, faster rate hikes may support the yen temporarily, but it will be quite negative for the economy that really hasn't been very strong domestically and organically. So, the economy remains quite structurally vulnerable to the kind of terms of trade shock that could feed through quite quickly.
If we now see dollar yen with both the US and the Japanese government intervention, if there's a possibility that could actually start to continue to move lower, then I think it puts a lot of pressure on the equities market as people look at the biases within their portfolio and still see that financials exporters bias.
The inflation in Japan is driven by oil prices and the concern over fiscal policy. And that really translates into the rates differential between the U.S. And Japan. That macro backdrop is not getting more favorable for the yen. It's actually going against the yen. So I think against this big backdrop from a macro perspective, the FX policy strategy maybe is more about slowing the pace of yen depreciation rather than really seeking to turn it around from a directional perspective.
Some of our guests across Bloomberg TV discussing the outlook for the yen. Here is where we trade this morning, 156 per dollar. This after confirmation that there has been intervention from the US and Japan, a coordinated intervention for the first time in about 15 years, and signals that there could be more of it. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that there won't be a hesitation to intervene again, and the President Donald Trump saying that it's a signal of friendship between the two nations that this intervention has happened already. Now, just flip the board over and you can see, yes, Japan promised shock and awe. We've got it, but take a look at the conditions in the market that this landed into. The market was not ready. Extreme low volatility and extremely one-way futures. So this is what it landed into. But flip the board one more time. Think about the carry trade risk here. If you have been an investor borrowing the yen cheaply to buy higher yielding assets, the so-called carry trade, then that has made you strong gains so far year to date. But now, as the yen strengthens, those gains, of course, at risk of being wiped out. And as yen volatility rises, the carry trade getting even more dangerous to hold on to. So perhaps this is the time to move on. But to get all of these charts and all the others that we use across Bloomberg TV throughout the day, terminal subscribers can find them by going to the function CHRT TV Go on the terminal. And let's just remind ourselves of the risk events for the week, shall we? Because tomorrow we've got more earnings coming from SpaceX. Interesting to see what they're reporting since the IPO. Wednesday we get Novo earnings, as Chloe Melly was previewing for us. And then throughout the week we'll be getting lots of jobs data from the US, but culminating in the big payrolls report on Friday. Now, coming up later on Bloomberg TV, we'll be hearing from Matt Garman, the chief executive of Amazon Web Services. He'll be joining Bloomberg Tech at 4:30 p.m. London time. But Anna Edwards and I will be taking you all the way to the European cash open on the opening trade next. So that does it for Daybreak Europe. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg.